Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I wanted to give just a quick POV on my collecting preferences. Today going to be diving into why I personally prefer to collect graded 9 cards and even lower like grades 8s and 7s over the chase of the graded 10 gem mint cards. Now I say graded cards and not PSA because this does apply to all grading companies. Obviously you're seeing PSA featured here on screen, but I also own some BGS 9s, and I actually have my first ever CGC slab on the way in the mail. So again, this applies to all grading companies, not just PSA. But I will, for ease of talking, I will just reference PSA. I know I also included PSA in the title. That was honestly just because I thought that that would get the most traction through the algorithm. So we'll say PSA, but again, just know that this applies to all grading companies. And I know obviously this is not a new concept. I know many people have made videos sharing their points on why they prefer to collect certain grades. So you may hear some points that you've already heard in the past, but since this channel is dedicated to sharing my collection, I wanted to make sure that I had a video highlighting why I personally collect what I like. Obviously in this case, we're talking mostly PSA or graded 9 cards. And on the theme of grading, before we get started, I just want to share very quickly that I am in the process of working on a cross-grading experiment that I'm pretty excited about. I'm not going to give too much detail because I will make a video on that in the future, but just know that that is going on in the background. I still have to ship everything out, obviously wait for the process to complete and then come back. So I'm not 100% sure when that video will be coming out, but just know there is some cross-grading going on in the background that I'm really excited to share with you all. And the final thing I'll say before I get started is this is not a video to, villainize or talk down on anyone who collects, graded 10 cards. As you know, there is no right or wrong way to collect in the hobby. As long as you are collecting what you love, that is how you will have the most fun and find the most success in the hobby. If you enjoy the pursuit of the pristine Gem Mint 10, that's awesome. If you prefer the opposite and like to go for the lowest grades in PSA 1s, that's awesome as well, as long as you are collecting what you enjoy. So don't take this as PSA 10s are bad. That is not the point of this video. It's just to share why I choose to collect what I collect. So with that being said, I mainly want to highlight two-ish main points. The first one being that grading can be somewhat arbitrary at times. Now, I won't say grading is arbitrary as like an absolute statement. I'll just say, it can be. And what I mean by that is, since the vast majority of grading is still done by humans, human error is inevitable. So it's only natural that that also is at play in the world of grading. I'm sure anyone who's watching this video can relate to seeing a PSA 9 card that was super clean that they thought would get a PSA 10, or maybe you saw a PSA 10 card and you found a minor imperfection and you're like, wait, this shouldn't have gotten a 10. And that's just the nature of human error. It happens in everything in life. It also, I think, gets a little sticky with you have, many different grading companies. They all have their own standards. And it's not just one person grading every single card. There's different people. Again, while they follow the standards of the company, that does lead to some inconsistencies where the 10 can potentially become an arbitrary number. And factoring in the price points that some 10s fetch, that is one of the reasons I choose to focus on 9s rather than 10s. A 9 is still a virtually perfect card. The differences between a 9 and a 10 are unbelievably minor, sometimes not even noticeable by the naked eye. So I find that, the money goes farther for me collecting 9s over 10s. The number on the card, or the number on the slab, I should say, is not important to me. What's important to me is the card that's in the actual slab. And that goes back to, the advice that many people say in the hobby, which is you buy the card, not the grade. Now, going back to the point of the price differences, I think this is the other reason I personally prefer 9s over 10s. And again, it factors in the point that 9s and 10s are nearly identical. Obviously, I tend to gravitate toward vintage cards. Vintage 10s are very, very, very pricey. And the 9s are often available at a fraction of the price. Again, the minor differences between a 9 and 10, as long as a 9 meets my personal standards, I'd prefer to have, more 9s for the same price as, say, a 1 or 2 PSA 10s. Basic example, let's say I have $1,000. I'd rather have 10 PSA 9 cards instead of like 1 or 2 PSA 10s. Just having more artwork in my collection that is still, high quality, still in strong condition. Basically, it allows your money to go further for you. For me personally, the most important element of the card is the part where the artwork is featured, obviously. So you'll have these where the artwork is featured, and then with that, for me, the holofoil is the deal breaker when it comes to buying graded cards. I don't want any print lines. I don't want any scratches. The card can be, slightly off center. There can be a small nick on the back. That doesn't really bother me. All I care about is that the artwork is preserved to the highest standard possible. And you'll find that PSA 9, a majority of the times, does offer that. So again, that's another reason why I personally prefer the PSA 9. So it's really just, grading being somewhat arbitrary, and the fact that your money goes a lot farther in the hobby buying PSA 9s. Buying the PSA 9s while still giving you a really, really strong quality and condition card. Now, I should preface this by saying, when I buy a card for my personal collection, I buy it with the mindset of, I'm never selling this. So, I don't care if it 5x's or 10x's in value. I don't care if it goes down to $0 in value. I know a lot of people buying 10s think of, the potential growth that the card may have in terms of an investment, but I personally, as it pertains to my personal collection, am never thinking about that, because I buy these cards with the intention of taking them to the grave with me. The other question I think that a lot of people will ask is, well, if you're not in pursuit of the 10, why do you choose to buy graded cards? Some, even PSA 9s, especially for vintage, will still carry a premium for the condition you're getting. And for me, buying a graded 9 is a really easy way for me to, at least at a baseline level, have an idea of what kind of card I will be getting. I do a lot of my shopping for my personal collection online. I go to card shows here and there, but the majority of my collection is bought online. And buying raw singles, especially vintage era, can be very, very tricky when you can't, look at the card with your own two eyes in your hands. Some scratches may be hard to see through certain angles on the pictures. So buying a PSA 9, I know at the very least, okay, I'm getting this level of quality. So it kind of alleviates some of that stress and some of that risk with that slightly higher premium than you may pay for, a raw card. So those are the main 2 points that I wanted to share for me personally. Again, the grading being somewhat arbitrary and inconsistent, and then just, the differences between a 9 and a 10 and the price point for those two different grades. I know obviously there are companies that are a little bit more machine first grading, like Tag. I've never graded with Tag before. I've never owned a Tag slab. So I don't really know much about the process, but I have seen some videos talking about, the company itself. And I do think the reports you get after grading are super, super cool. I do think having that transparency into the information is extremely, extremely helpful. So very interested to see how that evolves in the near future. And just an FYI, Tag is not the cross grading company that I am I am experimenting with. But if anyone does have experience with Tag, definitely let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I'm always looking for more information on these grading companies, because there's a lot of brands fighting for the spot. Obviously, PSA is the mainstay, but yeah, I'm excited to experiment with one that I will share on the channel later on. I think it fits really, really well into my personal collection, but that'll be coming a little later on. And again, I know I mentioned this at the beginning. I wanted to mention it here at the end as well. There is no right or wrong way to collect. Don't let anyone tell you that you are not collecting the right way. As long as you are enjoying what you are collecting, that is how you have the most fun in this hobby. But yeah, that's all I have for you today. Those are my reasons for collecting graded 9s over graded 10s. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you have a graded preference? What are your rationales? Very curious to hear from you all. Appreciate you being here. I'll see you in the next one.